There was once a man named David. He wasn't lazy, nor was he untalented. But at 33 years old, he was broke. Not just financially, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually bankrupt. He had dreams once, big ones. But dreams, you see, have a deadline. And his had long expired while he distracted himself with excuses. The economy's bad, he'd say. I didn't get the right education. I'm not lucky like the others. And slowly, without realizing it, David had built a sturdy home inside the neighborhood of mediocrity. But one day something shifted, not outside him, but within. He realized his life wouldn't change until he changed. He met an old mentor named Charles at a local business seminar. The man was soft-spoken but confident, grounded yet intense. Charles didn't promise quick fixes. He simply said, "David, if you want things to change for you, you have to change. And if you want things to get better, you have to get better." That line hit David like a freight train. No one had ever told him that he was the problem, and also the solution. That night, David didn't sleep. He sat in silence with a pen and notebook and did something he hadn't done in years. He wrote a vision for himself. Not a fantasy, but a plan. He began waking up earlier. Not by much, just 30 minutes. He read one chapter of a book every morning. Not the tabloids, but the classics. Think and Grow Rich, As a Man Thinketh. The seasons of life. Slowly, his mind changed. His attitude changed. And when your attitude changes, your world follows. He still worked the same job, but he worked differently. He arrived 10 minutes early. He asked better questions. He stopped complaining. He realized the job wasn't the prison. It was the training ground. In 6 months, David had become a different man. Not because life got easier, but because he got stronger. He was no longer waiting for opportunity to knock. He was building the door, hinge by hinge. One day, Charles gave him a test. "David," he said, "I want you to speak at the next seminar. Share your story. Don't try to inspire. Just tell the truth." David was terrified. He'd never spoken in front of more than 5 people. But he remembered something Charles had said. Discipline weighs ounces. Regret weighs tons. So he said yes. That speech changed everything. People saw themselves in David. Not the polished, perfect version, but the man who struggled, who failed, who rose. It turns out people aren't looking for gods, they're looking for guides. David had become one. Over the next 2 years, he started a small business. It didn't explode overnight. There were setbacks, rejections, sleepless nights. But through it all, he remembered the first law Charles had taught him. Don't wish it was easier. Wish you were better. The business grew. So did David. He was reading now 2 books a month, journaling his thoughts, reflecting on his values. He stopped wasting time on things that didn't matter. Mindless scrolling, gossip, envy. He replaced entertainment with education. He realized that success wasn't something you pursued, it was something you became. And when you become it, you attract it. People asked him, "What's your secret?" He smiled and said, "Consistency and pain. The pain taught me everything." The 5 years from the day he met Charles, David was living a life he once thought was impossible. Not because he found a shortcut, but because he learned the rules. The inner rules. That discipline was the bridge between goals and accomplishments. That we don't get paid for the hour, we get paid for the value we bring to the hour. That every day is an opportunity to either repeat or evolve, and he chose to evolve. He still remembered the nights he cried alone, the rejection letters, the embarrassment, the envy. But now he looked back not with regret, but with gratitude, because the struggle had become the strength. The storm had made him unshakable. He realized the point was never the money, the fame, the success. It was the growth. The real reward is who you become on the journey. And now David teaches others. Not from a pedestal, but from the dirt, because he's been there, he tells them. You have 2 choices. You can live a life of excuse or a life of purpose, but not both. And as he walks off stage to a quiet room full of people, many with tears in their eyes, he knows he's done his part. He didn't save them. He simply reminded them that they too can rise, that their pain isn't punishment, it's preparation, that they can turn struggles into strength. In the years that followed, David never forgot who he was before the transformation. He kept an old picture of himself, back when he was lost, broke, and full of doubt. Not to shame himself, but to remember. Because when you forget the pain, you forget the purpose. He'd say to others, My past wasn't a prison. It was a classroom. He believed that life doesn't happen to us. It happens for us. Every disappointment, every closed door, every lonely night was a part of the sculpting process, because character isn't built in comfort. It's forged in fire. He remembered when his car was so broken down, he had to walk to work in the rain. Now he drove a fine vehicle, but what mattered most was who he had to become to earn it. And that's what he tried to teach. Don't focus on what you get. Focus on what you're becoming. He knew that without roots, success can become a curse. So he kept his mornings sacred. Reading, meditating, planning. No matter how busy life got, he treated his mind like a garden, because weeds don't wait for permission. One evening, a young man named Marcus came to see him. Early 20s, full of fear, but hiding it behind bravado. "David," he said, "I want to be successful like you. I want the life, the business, the respect, but I don't know where to start." David smiled. He had seen that look before. The hunger, the confusion, the longing. He placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder and said, "Start by working harder on yourself than you do on your job. Develop skills. Speak with clarity. Think with precision. Act with integrity. The world may pay you in dollars, but it respects you for your value." They met weekly. David didn't give Marcus a blueprint. He gave him principles. Because the blueprint will change, but principles are timeless. Discipline is the foundation, he told him. Most people want the glory without the grind. But the grind is where you grow. At first, Marcus struggled. He was impatient, wanted everything fast. But David showed him that fast is fragile. That slow, steady, deliberate effort is what builds a man. Success is not doing extraordinary things, he said. It's doing ordinary things with extraordinary consistency. Marcus began changing. He started reading. He began speaking differently, walking differently, thinking differently. And in 2 years, the young man who was once full of doubt was mentoring others. David saw it happen again. The quiet miracle of human transformation. He knew that the greatest gift we can give the world is not advice, but example. That when one person decides to rise, others follow. Years passed. David's name grew. He was invited to speak all over the world. But no matter how big the stage, he spoke the same truth: you are not your past. You are your potential. But potential means nothing without discipline. The crowds didn't remember every word, but they remembered the feeling, the conviction, the courage, the invitation to become more. One day, David stood alone on a hill behind his home. It was a quiet morning. He looked over the land he once dreamed of owning. But he wasn't emotional because of the house or the view. He was emotional because he knew how far he'd come. Not in miles, but he whispered to himself, "Thank you for not giving up." And he meant it. Every late night, every early morning, every moment of doubt had led to this moment of peace. He wrote in his journal that day, "Pain gives birth to wisdom. Struggle gives birth to strength. And faith gives birth to miracles." That line would later go viral. But David never cared about popularity. He cared about impact. He knew that fame fades, but influence lasts. He'd often say, "Don't aim to impress, aim to influence." As the sun began to set, David had one final thought. He thought about the people still stuck, still believing the lie they're too broken, too late, too far gone. And he made a promise to keep showing up, to keep teaching, to keep living as proof that the human spirit is unstoppable when fed by vision, guided by discipline, and grounded in gratitude. So wherever you are right now, whether you're broken, confused, or simply tired, remember this: you are not finished. Your story is not over. And your struggle is not the end, it's the beginning. Every great life began in the mud, not the marble. The seed breaks before it blossoms. The diamond is formed under pressure. And you, my friend, are being forged. Don't run from the pain. Learn from it. Don't resent the struggle. Rise from it. Like David, you can turn the fire into fuel, but only if you choose. And if you're willing to choose, day after day, when no one is watching, then you will discover what David did. That strength doesn't come from ease. It comes from rising when it would have been easier to quit. And one day you'll look back not in bitterness, but in awe, because your greatest burden became your greatest blessing. And your struggle, your story, your scars became the gift the world needed. As David entered the later years of his life, he noticed something interesting. The more he gave, the more he had. Not in material possessions, but in meaning. His days were no longer filled with chasing. They were filled with teaching. He mentored not for applause, but for legacy. Because he understood something few ever dogged, that true success is not measured in what you leave behind. One evening, David was asked to speak at a graduation ceremony. The audience was young, hungry, idealistic, full of fire, but lacking direction. He stood at the podium, quiet for a moment, looking out at the faces. Then he began. "If I could go back and tell my younger self one thing," he said, "I'd say this: don't avoid pain. Invite it, because pain is the teacher, the coach, the refiner. And if you stay in the fire long enough, you don't come gold." The crowd was silent, not out of boredom, but reverence. He continued, "You'll have moments in life where everything feels heavy, when you'll question if it's worth it. Let me tell you, it is, but only if you let those moments shape you instead of break you. Struggle is not the enemy. It's the path. It's life whispering, there's more in you. Keep going." After the speech, a student approached him in tears. "How do I keep going when it hurts so much?" she asked. David placed a hand on her shoulder and said, "By remembering who you want to become. The future version of you is counting on this moment. Don't let her down." And for the first time, she smiled through her tears. Not because the pain was gone, but because she now saw the purpose in it. As David walked back to his car under the stars, he remembered all the nights he once felt like giving up, all the moments he thought he wasn't enough. And he realizing those moments were sacred, not because they were pleasant, but because they were pivotal. He whispered to himself, "I wouldn't trade the struggle for anything. It gave me my soul back." And so he lived, not as a man who had conquered life, but as one who had cooperated with it. He no longer resisted hardship. He embraced it, not because he enjoyed suffering, but because he trusted the process. He believed, as Jim Rohn often said, "Don't ask for a lighter load, ask for a stronger back." David's back was strong, his heart was stronger. And his message, now echoing across the world, was strongest of all. You can rise, you can rebuild, not despite the struggle, but because of it. Your pain is the beginning of your purpose. Your discipline is the bridge to your destiny. And your story, yes, yours isn't over. It's just getting good. So wherever this message finds you, whether in darkness, in doubt, or in the middle of rebuilding, don't quit. You're being shaped, refined, forged. Your greatest days are not behind you, they are ahead. And one day, like David, you'll look back on the storm and smile, not because it was easy, but because you made it through. And when you do, remember to turn around and light the path for someone else, because your strength is not just for you. It's for all of us.